Hey everyone, welcome back to Conversations in Courage.
Welcome back.
Today's episode is one that we're going to put a content warning on this because we are discussing abuse and assault of children. And so I just want you to be mindful and take care of yourself as you listen. This episode obviously hits hard for Mark and I as well because, we are parents and we work with children through the Courage campaign. So this feels like something we should absolutely be discussing on this podcast and with this audience, but it is sensitive. So, yeah, Mark, anything from you before we introduce our guest?
And I think that was a great intro, and I think the to your point, I think the thing that has been immensely difficult to process, in addition to just hearing the story itself, it's the fact that we assume that there's systems in place that are meant to protect our children, right, and those that we love, and sometimes those systems, right, fail us, and sadly, this was one of them. So.
Thank you. So without further ado, we want you to meet Jen Baptista. She is going to give you her own bio and her own story. So we set a context of who she is in the world. But Jen, just thank you for being here. Thank you for wanting to share your story, your family's story, and for doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. This has been a very long time coming, and I'm just trying to get our story and the story of the bill out there as much as possible. So I'm Jen Baptista. I'm a realtor in the North Shore area of Boston. I am a mom of three beautiful kids, and I'm a special needs mom. My son Nathan, who is 10 years old, is on the autism spectrum.
Could you tell us a little bit about Nathan? Um, like perhaps, of course, without, violating his privacy
Yeah.
or your levels of comfort, but um, what what does that mean for him being on the autism spectrum? How does that present? Maybe what challenges do you have as a mother and how um, the kinds of services that you need for him in school?
Yep. So Nathan was diagnosed about 2 months before his second birthday. We had inklings for quite some time. He didn't he did not talk. He did not respond to his name, point, all the very typical autism red flags. Nathan's been in school since he was 3 years old. He's gotten speech and OT every year that he's in school. He also gets reading services now. He's in the fifth grade, and he cannot read yet. So that's our biggest challenge. Nathan is just the most amazing boy. He is funny and he is kind. And honestly, he's getting to the point where he just wants to be like his siblings. He really wants to be able to go outside and play with the neighborhood kids and run around. But, we have the challenges of safety, whereas he'll just dart in the street and not think twice. He elopes. So we have to really be mindful of how he is when it comes to us. Um, but he is just the most magical, loving little boy you could imagine.
What were sort of your because you have two other children and it's you and your husband, but what was that sort of initial reaction from you all when Nathan got his diagnosis? How did you feel relieved, prepared? Like what was that like for you knowing that you were going to have a different journey?
So, and I say this all the time, they need to change the way our diagnosis was handled. Even though we knew going in what the outcome was most likely going to be, They handed us this navy blue folder, which we still have, that says autism spectrum disorder on it. And they said, you're going to probably have like 30 hours of ABA and good luck. And that that's a full-time job and you just spiral. And I spent a few days just really crying because I just was so overwhelmed by the mountain that we were given. And slowly things started coming around that it was going to be okay. Like his services were going to stay the same at home. We were just going to add in some more. We as a family do ABA. That's a very personal decision for some people. Some people don't.
Can you
But for
tell
us,
people quickly what ABA is for those who've never
um,
heard of it?
it's applied behavioral analysis. So it's just trying to, I mean, for us, it's been a very positive experience. They've taught Nathan what his name is, what his address is, what my name is, my phone number, how to sit with other people and, you know, take turn, his brother, his twin, God bless Sammy, would sit and work with him and his therapist. We were very lucky. We had the same ABA therapist from when Nathan was 3 to 10 years old. So that is a very, very hard find. We were very blessed to have our therapist come with us. But in the beginning, it was a struggle. And I remember the coming up like on the first anniversary of like his diagnosis, I was just a mess. I was like, this year's been so hard and this is the rest of my life and da da da. So my husband and I decided to flip the script on that. So every December 12th, we do diagnosis day and we throw Nathan a party and we buy him a cake and we get him a toy. He calls it Nate's Day. And it's something that not only changed his life forever, but it changed our whole entire family's life forever. So we've really tried to put like a different spin on it to make things, obviously autism has its major challenges, but it's also shown us so many amazing things as well.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Okay. So, what grade was Nathan in when you started to suspect that something was going wrong? How did you know?
Nathan was in kindergarten. It was the year of 2020 going into 2021. So while other kids were being taught at home, like online learning,
Mhm.
Nathan actually went in person because he's such high needs. Um, and he would cry going to school, and we just thought it was such a change. And like he would went from being home for months to now going back in school, and he's seeing his siblings staying at home. So it was just a confusing time for everybody. So we just thought he was struggling because Nathan couldn't articulate really what was going on inside his body and what he was feeling. Um, and then one day Nathan was having a very hard time. It was a Sunday night. And he has, outbursts and he can get very physical with himself and his family. And I went to scoop him up so he wouldn't hurt himself or his siblings. And he said have said this before, he said his very first sentence was, "Please don't hurt me." And we immediately said, "Nathan, who is hurting you?" And he just said, "Teacher, teacher." So I immediately emailed the school that night. And then I got email back in the morning from the principal saying, I got your email. I would like to talk to you about this. And she called me and we went over what next steps were, which was going to be we were going to come in and they were going to talk to Nathan and talk to myself and try to get more information from him. We went in, we did, an interview, and it was the head of special education, the principal, and the speech pathologist because she could help Nathan navigate when he was getting upset and how to articulate things better. He did tell them that, they said, "Where did you get hurt?" And he pointed to his like wrist hand area. So that was the first time. We went in again and we were going to do a picture lineup. And we're gonna put all the teachers because he has so many, sorry, he has so many specialists and teachers that the teacher part was not clicking. So we went in and he was very distracted because the speech pathologist was there and I guess she was playing with a balloon in the classroom and it popped. So he kept looking at her and saying, pop, 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 and he wouldn't focus. So we're like, all right, let's just try to get this again at a later time. We got through February vacation. And then on the Tuesday after February vacation, I got an email from the principal saying, I interviewed the staff again and we're going to close the investigation because there's nothing to see here.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I was devastated. I was like, so we're just going to forget this. She's like, nope, nobody knows anything. Nobody saw anything. You know, we can't help you. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And then they sent us a letter saying that they're because if they do an formal investigation, they have to send you a letter with the results. And it said that they were closing their investigation because there was no bullying. And I was like, okay, I wasn't talking about bullying. I'm talking about something else. Um, so that was mid to late February. And it just didn't neither didn't say anything else. Like after that, like things kind of quieted down. Um, and then we had a meeting with his team, like an IP meeting, and we brought up the fact that this was closed. And the principal said something that just clicked. And I realized that things were bad. And she said, well, I said, well, I don't, can we talk about why you closed this investigation? Besides, you know, everyone's denying it. She goes, well, there's a lot of discrepancies in Nathan's story. And I said, okay, I would like to know what discrepancies were. She goes, well, the first time we asked him where he got hurt, he pointed to the top of his hand. And then the next time when we asked him where he got hurt, he pointed to his wrist. So clearly his story is not adding up. And I lost my mind and I almost cussed this woman out. And I was like, this feels dirty. This feels dirty. And I started digging and started digging within the community. And once we did, we found that's where we found all the bodies were buried because the amount of children that were of parents were coming forward was horrifying.
So Jennifer, I mean, like I'm sitting here and I can't imagine how you held it together because you know, um, I am feeling impacted viscerally by that reaction. Um, and when you say that you started to do some digging in the community, can you just talk a little bit about like how that manifested? Was that you reaching directly out to parents? Was that like a post that you did?
So my sister put on the community board, has anybody had, we did not name names, we just said, has anybody had any issues with the Wildwood, which was a school special education department, um, including teachers. So we try to keep it, we didn't name names. Um, People started DMing my sister. Is this about said teacher? Is this about said teacher? So my sister just started forwarding all these people to me and they started telling me my story and they started telling their story. And then once that happened, we immediately we took Nathan out of school. We just didn't send him back. I just, I felt so bad enough that I had already sent him back due to these things. And then to have, like, I mean, we had our suspicions about who it might have been, but to have literally dozens of people come out and say it, um, was so I pulled him and then I had spoken to his little best friend, his mom. She talked to her son who was actually, he's verbal and he was able to art and he had just started in the classroom, maybe like a little while before that. And he was able to tell her what was going on.
What did you notice with Nathan after you pulled him? Did his did his demeanor change? Like, any more outbursts? Did it seem like he had relaxed? Did it seem like he had some kind of, like, I don't know if using the term PTSD is correct. I hope I'm not offending anyone, but, was there residual trauma? To me, that is traumatic, right?
Yeah. So he was home. Um, the teacher and the aide were immediately put on leave because so what happened was is I slipped another parent a note and I said, please call me. And I talked to the mom and the mom of this child and the dad flipped out, went to the police, immediately filed a report. The police came with them to the school, as far as I know, and got the child. And then the dad went on our Facebook community page and just did a tangent about this woman. And people started commenting, this happened to my child, this happened to my niece, this happened, everybody knows about her, all of these wild things. Um, we waited a few more days and then they got a new teacher. And we asked that we were able to escort the kids back into school. And I will never forget, we walked in and we like sat around and we did some play and try to like get him adjusted. And then I said, okay, Bubba, I'm gonna go. And he walked me to the door and I looked down at him and he was just crying, like probably thinking, like, Mommy, don't leave me. And I just looked at him and I said, Nathan, you are safe. You will never see her again. And it was just the most gut wrenching experience. During this whole time, and then we didn't know, Nathan also has epilepsy, and when he started school, these seizures started ramping up, and we didn't know what was going on. And he had EEG done, which is like when they put the electrodes all over your head, and he did one in like a 3 hour one, and then he did a take home one where you wear for like 24 to 48 hours. We did one of those. We did an MRI under sedation. They put him on he was on Keppra, and then they put him on another seizure medication, which really messes with these kids' moods. I mean, they're, anticonvulsants, and they have a lot of effect on kids. And he was having, I don't know, 20, I think his ABA therapist did research, and he was having like 25 to 30 just in the session with Jose. And then he never suffered another one after she was gone. Never had another seizure. He was having post-traumatic stress dissociations. That's what his neurologist said it's now. Because his EEGs and everything came back clean as for no seizure activity, but he was having these deep staring spells. I mean, like you literally would have to shake him to make him come to, and it wasn't a seizure. He was just trying to disassociate and realize, especially on the van, he was realizing, I'm safe. I'm going home. My mom's there. I'm going to be okay. So it gave his body time to relax and not be in fight or flight the whole time.
Yeah, and I mean, how did you all keep yourself, sane and together through this? I can't even imagine what that must have felt like.
Um, I honestly don't really know. It was very every day. And like during this process, we were having more families come forward, and we were also having DCF, talk to all the time. And we're talking to the district attorney and the police and all of these things. And I'm just trying to like hold it together for not only for Nathan, but my other children, and having to sit down and explain to them what had happened to Nathan. This is not like something, we're a very honest family. We talk about everything. So having to tell Sammy, his twin, that, his teacher, that a teacher hurt Nathan. And I'll never forget Sammy's little face goes, was it an accident? And we were like, no, buddy. And he just started sobbing. Like he couldn't understand because to him, teachers so most are amazing, incredible people. We unfortunately just got the one really bad apple of the bunch.
I am so curious. I'm not, it's not to blame anyone or shame anyone, but if so many people knew, what was happening, if people were responding on Facebook. And it's like, why did it take that one mom and dad to immediately go to the police? Like, why? Do you have any sense of that?
So for a lot of the families with this abuse, their child also had significant needs. So the district was just for how it looks for us, the district was like, you know what? We're gonna redistrict you. We're gonna get you into that specialized school that is $80,000 a year that you could never afford on your own. And a lot of times when you sign up to get out of district, you also sign a non-disclosure agreement. So these parents are thinking that they can't talk about the abuse because it would go against the NDA, not understanding that you can't sign an NDA if there's abuse involved.
Uh, I can. So I guess as this went through, can you talk a little bit about what, if any, accountability took place? Because, like, to Ashley's point, right, the levels of failure, right, beyond the teacher and the principal and the superintendents and the DAs and like,
So the teacher, she retired immediately, so that we believe she, because if she didn't retire, she would have got fired. Um, so and then the aide was fired, just flat out fired. They just left her for dead. Um, they hired an independent investigator. He did like basically the same interviews and everything that DCF did. He did find that there was abuse, 3 of the 4 children in the classroom. And oh no, I'm sorry, 2 from that classroom and 1 from the year before. He didn't dig very deep. He just kind of like kept it like kind of like into like a little nucleus of time. Um, he found that DCF, this is very hard to talk about, originally found abuse and neglect for Nathan for this woman, and then later when they did another hearing, they changed their decision. But they did find the Wildwood school, which was the whole entire school. They did find them in like with neglect, because there was, as the way DCF put it to me, is that there were so many hands in this that they couldn't just, say one person with neglect or the other person. They just said, we're going to throw it on the whole entire school because everyone's hands seem dirty. And then with the DA, um, we had a meeting, and because we were hoping to press charges, and they told us that unfortunately, due to Nathan's lack of verbal capabilities, that they could not press charges because she has a right to face her accuser, and he could never withstand being cross-examined. And when I don't think I've ever cried that hard in my life, because it wasn't, yes, it was about justice, but it was the fact that this little boy and other children had been through so much, and it was like being told that their voice wasn't good enough. It was absolutely gut wrenching. So when I asked, like, how do we stop this? Like, how does this not happen? Like, most of these special ed classes have kids who cannot speak. And they said, if you want to stop this, then you should try to get cameras in the classrooms. And that's how I started my advocacy work of getting cameras into special ed classrooms.
So, how what do you well, first of all, let me go back, because I know we've had a prep meeting with you, so, Mark and I aren't hearing this for the first time, but I also want to give space because a lot of people are. And I want to thank you again, because I know that it's not easy retelling it. Even as you do this work, you have to put the story out there, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. So thank you for taking us through. Um, Thank you for taking us through that part of the journey.
Of course.
And I want to pivot for a second, not pivot, but to sort of ask, um, like, I'm like wanting to word this question correctly. But okay, so we want to put cameras in special education classrooms. Why is this a big deal?
Why is it controversial?
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah, why is it controversial? Why is there even why would you have to come on this podcast and share the story? Because it just Nathan is obviously not the first, the last, the only. The kids who came before Nathan, you're talking about one town, one school district. We know that this is happening all over the country. We know that we live in one of the wealthiest states in the country that have, arguably, super educated people and lots of protections and safety for people. And so it's hard for me to word the question because I feel like, why am I even asking this question? But
Yeah.
why is it a big deal?
Yeah, it's almost like explain, like make it make sense why it doesn't make sense to everybody else.
Thank you. Yes, literally that.
um, well, part of it is privacy. They say that there should be privacy for the students, which is I get. But and there's also we have the issue with teachers and the teachers union. They also believe that there is some aspect of privacy. I feel like the aspect of privacy is a very moot point because you work in a public school. So all aspects of privacy should be essentially to me like not very it shouldn't be a standing point. There's also cameras in cafeterias. I work in a school. There's multiple cameras all over that cafeteria, in the auditorium, in the hallways, in the gymnasiums. There's basically cameras everywhere. And they feel like they don't like the idea of Big Brother standing over their shoulder and watching them. And that is not the point of my bill at all. It's literally to say if a teacher makes a complaint, if a parent makes a complaint, if a child makes a complaint, we're going to be saving so much time and resources and everything else by being like, you know what? Let's just roll back the tape and say, Tuesday at 10:35, Mrs. B thought she noticed that Mrs. D was acting a little aggressive towards Tommy. And because they might not be able to hear the context of what's going on, and they can actually look and say, "Oh, no, 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 it wasn't that at all. Tommy was having a really difficult time, and she wasn't." Because they also restraint is a huge issue, and you have to be certified, and it has to be done a very specific way, and there has to be a report filled out. So if a teacher is like, "Oh, I saw Mrs. D trying to restrain little Tommy," and it's like, "No, it wasn't that. It was something else." You can be able to like. There's so much more context to like what is actually going on.
It protects everyone. I mean, the way I think
Yeah.
about it is it protects the kids clearly. And in some situations, I've got to imagine that things are brought up that, to your point, have context. So in that case, it's going to protect the teacher as well. Again, like make it make sense. It's
Yeah. And it's giving these kids who don't have a voice. It's giving, you know, there were teachers that would come forward. In our case, there are two that I can specifically, and that went to the administration and said, "This is what I'm seeing," and the administration didn't do anything. So now they're like, "Oh crap! Like now there's a target on my back. Like I can't." They can't reach out to the parent. If they call DCF and a DCF comes in now, then there's going to be, an investigation. They're going to know who it is. And it's going to unmuddy the waters that are so muddy, and it's just going to help the whole process. It's going to save, should people still be calling DCF if there's a suspect of abuse? Yes, but it's going to be DCF's not could save time and be like, oh, you have a camera? Oh, we can just look and see,
right.
not have to spend all this time. And DCF was called for us in the very beginning. They were called the very beginning of February, and they just They called the school, asked the school, said, "No, we did an investigation. Everything's fine." And then they just closed it.
I mean, and of course, the thing behind the thing is that as social services continue to be dwindled and people are overworking and not making enough money and it just kind of like continues to trickle down. And I think sometimes when people are thinking about politics or people are thinking about voting or whatever, they're not thinking about how that choice can affect someone like Nathan. They're not thinking like, you know, that literally in order for like someone to even review a tape or do an investigation or drive out to a school, it's time and it's money.
Money.
It's
And
like resources.
yeah. And we all know everything comes down to money.
Everything comes down to
That
money.
everything
So
comes down.
what if they say, Jen, we agree that we would love to have cameras. It's too expensive. Uh, you know, taxpayers won't pay for this or whatever. Like, have you kind of researched around to see other schools, other states? Is this working anywhere else?
Yes. So oddly enough, I have my little research notebook because
Yes. Pull out the receipts.
because the I'm the type of person where I need to do that. So in Texas was the first. They were the breakout star. They've had them for quite some time. They have video and audio recordings upon request. Classrooms have to be at least 50% special education students. West Virginia, cameras in if these states can afford
I know.
this, if these states can afford this, oh man.
Jennifer, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like to me, when I hear that, do you have any insight in terms of was the catalyst the same? Was it like we know that kids were being abused in classrooms and therefore we need this, or was there another catalyst that actually
That part,
caused the action?
it doesn't in my like research of like state law, doesn't get into like the pretext
Yeah.
of why this is coming about. It just has come about. I have to like show the Joint Committee of Education like how this is working. West Virginia has it, Georgia has it, um, Louisiana allocated $8 million. Nevada, cameras in special ed classrooms. Um, who and then a few other states have had petitions. So Florida, they had a bill and it just got um I actually spoke to the person who did the bill in Florida. And he's a wonderful man. He has two kids with disabilities who do not talk. And he said it's killing him every day to see his kids go to school and not be, he goes, I just want to be able to have my kid come home and tell me how their day was. He goes, but if something ever happened, it I'm just I there's nothing I can do. Um their bill actually they call it died this summer. They're doing work to do a pilot program so that there will be I think if you petition to have this in your school, it would be an option. Um Georgia, it's called the Landon Dunson Law. They had a pilot program. The videos are kept for 3 months. The budget is held at a local level, which I think would be hard because here our influx. Some towns like Newton and can probably afford this, even though they don't want to pay their teachers, they can probably afford this tenfold. Um, Tennessee has it. Sorry, doggies. And
Okay,
then
we have pets too.
it,
All good.
there was another one. I believe it was Louisiana. They had a bill and then they had a pilot program and they expanded on it because they were seeing so much need for this. Um, and then every the state dishes out different expenditures to every single community.
Right.
So
Okay. So the so if there's already precedent, why are you having to work so hard?
because I am going against the Everest of unions, the Mass State Teachers Union. Um, they are the biggest union in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They are a juggernaut. I completely understand what I'm going against. Um, I
Wait, are
do
they your
understand the
only barrier, Jen?
no, so well, that is the biggest barrier.
Okay, okay.
I mean, money, that's always going to be a thing. Fair. And I'm trying to reach out to different autism groups and seeing like, hey, you guys do all this money for families. Like, would you be willing to put into autism safety and giving a $500,000 grant to the Commonwealth to fund some cameras? I mean, there's plenty of autism, like autism speaks, and there's many, people hold lots of galas and all these things to promote autism awareness. We're very aware that autism's around. We're good. We need
Yeah,
safety.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. And from your perspective and the research you've done, is there other scaffolding that tends to be put in place when you have cameras and stuff like that are also conducive to a healthier, safer environment?
Honestly, it's from the people that I've spoken to, it goes teachers unions top. That people all just don't want to go against them. They just don't. The next is where are we going to find this money? Where are we going to find this funding? And then last is kind of privacy. But other than that, like, I talked to so many people and they're like, "We think this is a great idea. We just don't think it will get passed for you."
And
They're like,
is there ever any like recommendations? I mean, I guess the thing that again, like make it make sense. Even if I was on the teachers union and I had a point of view, to me, it's unequivocal that there is a real problem to solve. So there has to be a solution. So basically, it sounds like the struggle you're having is not only are they saying, "Hey, we can't put cameras in," but they're also not giving up any alternate solutions to increase safety. Is that
"No."
real?
And that is so as far as I know, this is the biggest kind of push. There's been other pushes, but I'm really trying to make some waves with this one. And I don't think I also feel like they're kind of seeing the tsunami coming of cameras being everywhere. You can't go anywhere without a camera. Can't you drop off a delivery? What do you do when you go to your friend's house and you're dropping off something? You see their ring camera. Hi. So I think they feel like they're just trying to like hold on to the last sense of privacy that they have in their workplace. Um, but they're also the only workplace that I know that has privacy. Like my husband works in a financial institution. There are cameras everywhere. I mean, so I think they're just trying to hold on to the sense. And I feel and I'm hoping and praying, and I would love to work with the teachers union. And I would love to, I've emailed them a few times to try to, get a call or a meeting to pick their brain and see like, hey, like I'm not expecting them to come out with signs being like, yay. I don't want them to kill me. I just don't want to be dead in the water. That's all I'm asking. And I don't feel like that's too much. And it's just for these sub-separate classrooms. It's just for these special ed classrooms. It's just for the kids that don't have a voice. You know,
Which is very different than cameras in every single classroom. Like
yeah,
it, right?
I
Yeah.
don't need to see what Mrs. Smith's social studies class looks like. Like, I don't need that. I just need to see that when Susie comes home and she has a bruise here and her parents can't figure out why, I can tell you as a parent who has seen markings on their child and been like, that's weird. Being like, to be able to actually get an answer and be able, most likely will it be, that she fell and bumped her arm on a cubby? Probably. But if there is something nefarious going on, we have a right to know. And we have a right to prosecute these people. I almost feel like this sounds, I don't want to think this way, but like, do they pick this because they know? Like, so for Nathan's example, as I said, he called her teacher. And the one verbal child was able, he just kept saying, I don't know. I call her teacher. That's what she told us to call her. We figured out later that she really had them call her teacher because that way they couldn't name her. She knew
That's
that
insidious. Oh my god.
they didn't have the verbal capabilities to say it was Mrs. Blank. Um, so just teacher. And like I said, Nathan had a teacher, an aide, a general ed teacher, speech, PT, then you have art, gym, all these things. So teacher was just a very safe word. So it was just so layered and so dirty. And these parents should be able to know, like, when their kids are going to school, they're safe,
Pretty
you know?
basic. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Aren't able to just homeschool our children, or, it's if you suspect something, sometimes it's just really hard to know what to do, not because you don't wanna help your kid, but because you might feel like you have limited options because we're all
Yes.
working every day, right? So, what would be kind of like the steps that someone could take now that you have all this insight about
Okay.
how to move?
So the first thing I didn't know, so I coincidentally I was emailing with our pediatrician because Sam, Nathan's twin, has complex medical issues. And I was emailing her because we had um an EKG done that day and it looked bad. And I was just telling her, I was like, oh my God, this EKG, and it came back abnormal and they think he has hypertension. And Nathan's telling us that he's getting abused at school. And she was like, whoa, whoa, let's back that pony up. And she immediately called DCF. What I didn't know is that I could call DCF. I am a parent and I am a mandated recorder. I didn't really know that. um, call DCF, call the school and make a complaint. When you call the school or when you email the school and the school says, hey, can I give you a phone call? And they give you a phone call and we have this nice conversation and you're like, oh, wow, I feel like this because so a part of the problem to backtrack a little bit was, I had these phone calls with the principal and she was like, yep, when we come back to school after February break, totally gonna do a picture lineup. And then when I had asked her about the picture lineup, she was like, "What? No." So every conversation is followed with an email. Hi, Mrs. Tallulah. Thank you for your conversation today. I'd just like to talk about points A, B, and C. So that way it's in writing and they can't go back later and be like, I don't do that. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Every Every phone call is followed by an email, and I still do it to this day, even if it's like, "Hey, you had a great day. Hey, thanks for calling me and let me know that Nathan had a great day." Every conversation is followed by an email, and it was a dirty, nasty lesson that I once again had to learn at the sake of myself and my child. Um, I don't feel like you're crazy, I guess I would say to a parent. If a parent feels like I would feel so crazy, and even though I had people coming out of the woodwork, and I felt like, "Is this really that bad?" And I told you this in the prep. I would talk to my sister, and she'd literally answer the phone, "It's bad, Jen. It's really bad," because I could not conceptualize the rabbit hole that I was falling down. Like, I felt like I was just thrown out of a plane with no parachute, and I was just free falling, and I didn't know how to cope. So I just lived in this cycle of hearing people's stories and talking to DCF and then talking to the police. And it was just a bad, bad, bad cycle. Um, it's hard to go against the grain. It's hard to stand up, even if undoubtedly it's wrong. Like I say all the time, I'm probably one of the most gained people in Wilmington. Ask me how much sleep I lose. Not a wink. I sleep real good knowing that. I beat myself up enough that I continued to have him go to school after he had told us that he was being hurt. I spoke to a woman who does a lot of advocacy work, and she said, when you're doing this, you're going to have a lot of people say some pretty mean things to you. I'm like, they'll never compare to the things I've already said to myself in my head. Then like I have beaten myself up more than anybody. Every time, like something, like when the DA said they could not prosecute, I was like, what could I have done more? What did I miss? What steps could I have taken? You know, we haven't talked about it yet, but we just settled our civil lawsuit against the town and the teacher. Um and I couldn't even pull myself together because, everyone's like, you should be happy. It's finally over. This has been going on for 5 years. You must be exhausted. And it's like, I just put a number on my kid's trauma. Like, how do I look at my son and be like, oh, this is what it was worth for you? Like, how do you look at somebody and tell them that, you know? And I'm hoping that with this lawsuit being settled, that, you know, as far as I know and in my research, like nothing like this has really come about. Like, there's been no, settlement for something like this. So I'm hoping that towns now can look and take and be like, well, we're just going to turn a blind eye. Like the blind eyes, everyone's blind. There's no more. We're going to put on some glasses and we're going to do some work. We can't keep sweeping things under the rug because the Nathan has brought this woman up. Nathan's going through something inside that he can't articulate right now. So he resorts to very sad times in his life when he's having a hard time with something else. And he said, what did he say the other day? It's just been a tough couple of years, mom. And I said, okay, buddy, well, what's going on? And he goes, well, first the teacher beat me up, and then the cat died, and then the dog died, and then I lost Jose. Jose was his home therapist who was with him for 7 years. And I was like, I know, Baba. I was like, and if you ever want to talk about any of these things, mummies will gladly talk about them. And he's like, okay. He's like, it's just been a really hard few years. And I'm like, I know, buddy. I mean, Nathan has night terrors. He sleeps in our bed every night. And let me tell you, we're pretty old. I love him to death, but he's 10. He's getting to be pretty big, you know? And it's just the trauma. It's, I think for both him and um, we haven't even really scratched the surface of where this has led. I lead every parent teacher meeting with, hi, I'm Mrs. Baptista. I'm Nathan's mom. Yes, I am the one that has already sued your school district for mishandling of my child. So let's just get that out on the table right now. And they always go, oh, hi. But like, I'm not the one. I'm really not the one now. Like, I will drag you and I will make I'll make your life very hard if you even look at my child wrong. It just, it has, and it was kindergarten. It is the core foundation of the next like 13 years of his academic life. And our trust was broken at basically conception for this.
Yeah. Mark, I think you are muted, hun.
How about that? That is
That's
the
great.
other thing that absolutely just completely blows me away. Like with all of the knowledge we have across the decades around child development and the most important years of their lives and how impact has ripple effects, right? That transcend just those moments. Like we have more education now than ever. So not only does it blow my mind, right, that these things exist, but that the systems still are not in place to transcend this, right?
Mhm,
And so, like the fact that you and your family, right, have done what you did, like 5 years, it blows my mind, and you're still going through it, right?
mhm,
So the courage to fight for your child is one thing, but like you are beyond that even, right? I think you'll obviously always fight for your child, but you're fighting for other children now, right? And I think so. First off, just amazing, right? That thank you for being who you are. I hope that people, listening see this just as an example where, a person with a mission and enough passion can actually, right, make an impact and make a difference. And it's not, doesn't mean it's not going to be hard, but it can be done. And, truly the courage you've shown is just, it's just incredible.
Thank you. And I'm very lucky. I'm the first one. I say this all the time whenever meet with politicians and their aides. I'm very, very blessed. I have a family member who's a lobbyist. He helped me write the bill so I could use all those fancy, fancy words that I had to look up when he sent to me. And I was like, spent more time trying to figure out what things meant. I'm very blessed in that way. But at the end of the day, I'm just a mom. Like, I'm just a mom who wants more. And I said this in our prep meeting. There was a little boy, and I cried thinking about him every time. And I would, at the end, when Nathan was back in school and things were still, we didn't know what was going on, like the teacher, the whole mess. And principal, I wanted her gone. And it was a nasty fight. And there's a little boy, he was 3. He used to go to the preschool side and he was blind and he had his little stick with the tennis ball. And I used to say, I can't save Nate, but I'm going to save him. I'm going to save that little boy so that nothing ever happens to him because I can't change what's been done to my son, but I can change it what's going to happen for him. And Nathan and this little boy who I don't even know who he is has been when I wanted to just, I just don't want to do with this anymore. Like, I don't want to be knocking on doors and, I've literally gone, I say all the time, like, this is the beacon hill I will die on. I walk up to this state house with my bill and my phone number and my name and my email, and I just drop it off at, representative and senators' offices. I would love to just a chance to chat with you. I'd love just to talk. I'd love you just to hear our story. And, you know, it's a lot of times it just falls on deaf ears. And that's okay. And like I said, I've met an amazing woman, Cheryl. She put together Nikki's Law, which is a registry for people who abuse adults with disabilities. And she's like, it's a battle. It took her well over 5 years to get her bill passed. And that's fine. I got nothing but time, you know, I got nothing but time, and it feel like you said, we just want to make it make sense. And I'm just hoping maybe not this year, maybe not next year, maybe in 5 years, there'll just be enough. There's just enough evidence that it's going to finally make sense that these babies deserve so much more. And again, teachers m- predominantly and mostly are angels. Special ed teachers are next level. Paras who get paid barely a living wage. I was talking to a para today. He's the most amazing man. I love him. I think he's incredible. But there are those few that fall through the crack. And we need to make sure, I want the cameras to be the cement that closes the crack so they can't keep sliding through. I'm hoping right now it's Senate Bill 335.
Okay,
But yes,
so
hopefully. So it's so the bill for the registry, it's called Nikki's Law. So yes, hopefully someday, not hopefully, someday Nathan's Law will be there. I mean, I go back and forth because it wasn't just Nathan in this. There were 9 or 10 of us in our civil lawsuit, each with its own story that was, you know, we sat in a courtroom and, these judges and they had like a panel of, I believe like they were law students in the room. And I'm sure they hear some crazy stuff. They're working on. And some of the looks on their faces, that's what I watched. I've already heard everybody's story multiple times. I wanted to see their faces. And their faces were like just like disgust, horror, shock. So because that's what some of these kids had gone through. I mean, the things that this woman did were literally vile.
So if you could speak to people at this stage, how can people support you, support your bill? Is there anything that you could ask of people, um, who want to either help or just be aware or maybe get in contact with you? Like, how do we kind of create energy around what you're doing?
So I would especially love if you are a special needs caregiver, guardian, parent, whatever. If this is something that you feel passionate about for the young person that you take care of in life, and this is something that you are on board with, please reach out to me. I'm going to eventually need to speak in front of the Joint Committee of Education. And I need to have people who say, yeah, this is what they want. Because, of course, they're going to be like, yeah, of course, lady, you want this. But I need to have people who say, yes, this is needed. This is wanted. This is crucial. This is critical.
Yeah.
You know, my job is to do a lot of the R&D, the research and development, and really that part. Like, I need people's stories. That is the most, you know, if someone has gone through this, like if they need they want an ear, or if they feel like they're going through this, they can always reach out to me. They can ask questions how I went through the process. I am just trying to be there to be a book of what knowledge I have to anyone. But if and honestly, if they can just reach out to their senator and their representative and be like, hey, this is from the joint committee, especially if their representative or senator is on the joint committee of education, to really garner more support. The they're not go politicians are not gonna fight for something that their constituents don't really care about. So they're gonna be like, "Well, that's"
Right. Right.
but it's I will say, I've learned a lot through this process. Everyone thinks like, well, we won't talk about the current federal climate right now, but these politicians, like, they have to, when they sit on a joint committee, they have to learn everything that's in front of them, and they have to learn all the facts. They have to learn all the facts about the states, like, so they're doing what I'm doing. I mean, granted, they have aides and people to help them, but I mean, it's a lot of knowledge, and they really have to they take it quite seriously. It's a very long process. We're still waiting for our hearing date, and it's been almost a year. But that's fine because Mama still got a lot of work to do. I'm still trying to get all my T's crossed and my I's dotted. But if there are parents out there who feel passionately about something like this, I would love to talk to them. I'd love to hear them story. I would love for them to potentially come and speak on the Hill and give you know, their why. I can tell someone facts like the who, the what, the when, the where, but a why, someone's why will always be the reason that things get pushed through. You
Right.
know,
And as we start to wind down, I'm also wondering, like, do you have anything that you would want to say to educators, like, or, if someone from the teachers union happens to be a listener, or just like, an administrator or something, is there any specific thing that you would like them to hear from you?
so for the teachers union, like I said, I'm not asking them to, bust out the confetti parade for this. I just don't want them to kill it. I just want them to just be like, okay, we're going to take this one for the team. Like, this is something like I said, I think they see a lot of this coming down the pike. And it's also, my mind goes is like, so say there's cameras in a gymnasium, right? How's it fair that PE teacher is getting, you know, monitored and big brothered the whole time, but not the classroom where the children can't talk, or the teacher who, an incident happened and the parents are because there are crazy parents out there being like, nope, nope, nope. This is what we think happened. Like, it just doesn't. It just doesn't make any sense. My message to teachers is, I know if you see something, say something. You need, and I understand it's scary. And this is eventually going to be my other caveat to working on another bill is mandated reporting is very for police officers and firemen, things of that nature. If they see little Jimmy and they're like, there's something not right going on here. They don't go to their sergeant and they're like, hey, we think little Jimmy's being abused. They just call DCF. They just make the
Right.
report. Teachers have the option of going to the administration or calling DCF. So in the chain of command, they always go to the administration. Well, what happens if the administration does like we did, like what our school did? Then what? Then you're back to square one and things are bad. Just take away that middleman part.
Yeah.
Teach see something, and those teachers spend more time with their kids than anybody. So they're seeing something and they're suspecting something. Just call DCF. I know it's hard. There's an anonymous line. You don't have to give your name. You don't have to give any information, but you don't know who you're saving. You really might be, and it doesn't go. I'm not talking about their coworkers. Obviously, they're coworkers, but if they're parents, grandparents, a family member, anybody. But if you see something, you have to say something. You could be saving a lineage of kids.
Yeah. I think that's just such a powerful message, right? I think as parents, the takeaway for sure to me, right, is trust your instincts, right? When there's like a variation from normal, there tends to be a reason for that. And if there is no obvious connection to the reason, then, it's worthy for your intention. And my God, right? If you are an educator or a policymaker or someone in the administration or even the teachers union, right? I think there just needs to be a level of empathy in the absolute sacred trust that we, right, as parents or as community members, place in these institutions and
Hmm.
in teachers and in administrators to like keep our kids safe, right? Like there's just such a level of trust, and you can't just operationalize that. No one likes to be an outlier. No one likes to be the school that shows up on some scorecard about, abuse. But like, put your ego aside for a minute and put your own discomfort aside. Like to your point, like it isn't just one kid. If this happens to one kid, it is happening to many kids and
Yes.
every step we take. So again, I just, uh, truly thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
once again.
Thank you. The true Capricorn in me gets very bashful when I get a compliment. I want growling at the table. But I thank you.
Same.
It's literally, it's been, and thank you guys so much for letting me able to get my story out there. It's hard and it's scary, but I just feel so strongly. It, it's not over till it's over. And like I said, I know there's so many good educators out there, and I hate that they're gonna get like teachers get a bad rap for a plethora of things. And a lot of times it can be at the administration's wrongdoing, but it's more common than people even know. And it's, you know, like I said, it's everyone wants to wear these puzzle pieces and rainbows and all this acceptance. We don't need your acceptance. We need your safety. We need your caring. We need your empathy. We need your support. We need your support because my child's life is, in all of our life, is forever changed. And as hard as this is, and this is where I will say, give myself a compliment, as hard as this is, I feel like God and the universe put me on this path because they know how I am, and they were like, "She'll get it done. It stops with her." And I can say at the end of the day, it did. It did stop with me.
Not a more beautiful ending than that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, of course. And we'll make sure to link your information in the show notes so people
Mhm.
know how to contact you and how to stay updated, um, and all of those things. But I think, you know, the sky is the limit, right? You're kind of at the beginning of what your advocacy could look like. I mean, Mark and I never thought we would start anything, and we did, and it's been a amazing ride for us, and so, like, I can't wait to see what you create, who you're able to help and support, and, like, we're on your side, though.
Thank you.
So thank you.
It's been wonderful getting to know you, and I look forward to being able to call you one day and be like, "We did it. We
Damn
did it,
right.
Joe.
Damn right.
Yes,
We
yes,
did it."
yes, yes.
And we're gonna be there and, hopefully someday, and I've said it to our attorneys, like, "You guys are gonna be there on the state house when we cut that ribbon and we sign that into law," and I can sleep better knowing that, maybe my kids' will benefit from this, you know? It's been a very painful ride, but I'm not ready to get off the ride yet. I won't. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you once again.